discern my vocation? I don't think we ever discern our vocation. It is discerned within us in some way or other, I think. After I met our sisters in the Kelvin Hall in Glasgow, I went down to work in a school in Berwick-on-Tweed. But by this time, the seed was planted, and I was even praying to God, give me a vocation. I would love to be a missionary. But in the meantime, I was down in Berwick-on-Tweed in a big school teaching music, the one thing that I was capable of doing, a well-trained musician. And I thoroughly enjoyed it because despite being very young, I had the whole school in my hand for choirs, for young people, and it was absolutely wonderful to be among that atmosphere and doing a job that I was really enjoying to do. And I was in the countryside, which I always had hoped to be. There were 8 horses just beside me because we lived in a house for the staff. Well, some of us, we lived above the house that belonged to the stable master, as was. But we had 8 horses in the stables underneath, which were used to teach the children riding and so on. And to be among the countryside, the animals, 2 dogs in the place, I was in my glory. I realised that, and yet, I wanted to go on the mission. For some strange reason, this was the joy. I could have settled into this life very beautifully. And yet, and I kept contact with the sisters, but I never mentioned vocation. I kept contact, they gave me leaflets and news and so on. But I didn't know this was happening at all, that I was really wanting to be a missionary, but afraid to ask to enter. And I really was a bit upset that I wasn't hearing anything from them, except these bits of information, so on. One day, it was in November, I had gone home to my mother and father in Glasgow, as I did every few weeks, and when I came back, there was a note in the door, which was for me, and I went, oh good, for the sisters, and I opened it up, and it says, Dear Helen, your date of entry is the 2nd of February. I nearly collapsed. The next week I went home, in the end of the week, again to Glasgow to tell my mother and father. And I sat with them, I remember it as though it were last night, in the kitchen, and said, I want to be a Comboni Missionary Sister. And they said, oh. There was silence. And after a few moments, my father spoke, and he said, if God has chosen you to be his missionary, we are privileged. I'm an only child. And my mother joined. Oh, we're privileged. As long as not one of your fancy ideas of being a soldier or an actress or something daft. So there it was. I said, if you have one word against it, I will not go. That was the answer. But you can't go in February because you have a contract with the school. And so I had to wait until I got to the end of that year, and also to advise them that I wouldn't be there the next year. So that's the way it was. It was discerned, it was handled, and I was told.